everyone, all my little friends. Welcome to the fabulous Fox Mosaic tutorial. Today we're going to be working on this adorable Fox Mosaic. I'm going to quickly go over the supplies that you're going to need on your table, and then we're going to get started. First things first, you want to make sure that you've covered your workspace with a tablecloth. You will have one in your kit. If you haven't done that, go ahead and grab it. And you just want to make sure that you're protecting your workspace, since we will be using acrylic paint today and also glue. In addition, you may want to protect your clothes by wearing a smock or art clothes. Either one is great, just to make sure that if you get any acrylic on you, you don't have to worry that it's not going to wash out. All right, so here's our finished sample. And the first step of this project is going to be painting the fox. And then once that's dry, our next step is going to be to tile the fox. So here's what you're going to need for step one. You will need a bowl of water, some paper towels, this blue brush, little square guy. You are going to need a blank project. And you are going to need couple colors of paint. We have pink, we have white, we have orange, and we have black. You're also going to want to have handy either your mixing card or your mixing plate, whatever came inside your kit. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So the first part of the fox that we're going to work on is the white sections. So that's going to be our fox's cheeks and also the tip of his tail. So you can go ahead and move your other colors out of the way for now. You don't need to take the white out of your cup at this point. We don't need to put it onto our mixing plate since we're just going to be using white all by itself. So you can go ahead and get started painting your fox's face and tail. If we move too quickly at any point and you need to go back, feel free to pause, rewind, or fast forward the video at any time. A little tip about painting your project. It is important to try to spread your paint out and keep your layers kind of thin. We do this for a couple of reasons. The first one is doing thin layers of paint helps us to keep our color more consistent. And the second reason is it dries way faster if we keep it nice and thin. And the reason we want it to dry fast for this project is so we can move on to the tiling part. Don't worry about your fox's eye. You can go ahead and just paint right over that. That black line actually was going to pop right back out once it dries a little bit. So you can just go right over that little eye there. I'm just going back in and spreading out any areas that look thick, just so it's nice and smooth and it dries evenly, and most of all, it dries quickly. All right, one side done. I'm gonna do his other cheek. If you make a mistake while you're painting with acrylic paint, you have a couple of options. The first one is, if you let the color dry, chances are you can just paint over it. Acrylic paint is really great that way. It's easy to use and it's really easy to cover. The second option would be to take something damp, a baby wipe or just a little bit like a wet paper towel, and you'll be able to just wipe it right off if you make a big mistake and you want to try to fix it. But with white, we don't really have to worry, because even if it goes out of the lines, it's not going to be a problem. All right, I'm spreading my paint out nice and thin, a nice thin layer. If it starts to dry and you think that it isn't solid enough, you can always go back and do another coat just so that it's very solid. I tend to sort of go back and almost do a second coat while that first coat is drying, just by spreading it out and trying to keep it nice and even. Okay, We have two cute cheeks. The last white section is going to be the tip of the tail. I like to turn my project so that the part that I'm working on has no chance of my hand rubbing into the wet parts that I just did. So I turned my project around so that I'm right-handed. Now my right hand is over here and the wet parts of my project are on the left. I also have my hand on the table, and that kind of helps keep my hand steady. Now I lifted it up, of course, but it does help to steady your hand when you have room for it on the table. All right, Fox is looking cute already. All right, I'm doing the smoothing out part that we talked about before, just making sure my paint is nice and thin and even. Perfect. Okay, our white section is complete. We're going to use this brush again, and we actually don't need to wash it because we're going to be mixing our orange paint together with a little bit of white. So you can go ahead and take your mixing plate or your mixing card, and you're just gonna, I usually just take a little scoop like this with my brush. You may want to take 2 scoops of white because we do have quite a bit of orange to cover here. And then you're going to take your orange and you're going to do the same thing. I would do 1 scoop of orange, 2 scoops of white and 1 scoop of orange. And then I'm going to mix the little pile right here. Doesn't need to be super light, but we do want a few shades of orange so that we can show that the different parts of our fox are in the foreground or maybe in the background a little more. So here's a color that I'm happy with. And I'm going to use this sort of light orange to fill in the fox's face. So just be careful for those sections that we just painted. And you're just going to carefully go around this white section. We can skip the nose for now. All right. So take a few minutes and go ahead and fill in the fox's face and just go around the ear triangles when you get up to that part. Okay, so we have this initial coat of orange up here on our fox's head, and we are gonna just put a little highlight right here along the top of his crown of his head. So I still have my plate that has my orange, and I have only a little bit of white left. And then I still have this orange brush that I was using. This is all you're gonna need. You can just drag some of that white out. If you don't have any white left on your plate, you can put some more on there. So it's just white on my brush, and then I'm just gonna kind of drag across the top of his head. Now in the beginning, before you start blending it, it's gonna look really white, but we're gonna go ahead and keep going back and forth and trying to mix this in with the color that's underneath. If your background got really dry, it might be hard to blend, and if that's the case for you, you can just grab some more orange. I'll show you. You can grab some more of that orange mixture and then just work from the bottom up to blend it back in. So we're going to use the same light orange to fill in the tail section of our fox. I used all mine, and if that's true for you as well, you can just get a little more orange and get a little more white and make another mix. I have a little bit of white here, so I just added a little orange. And we're going to use this to fill in the tail. Okay. Tail is all done. His head is all done. We just have his orange belly left. That part's gonna be just orange by itself. So all I did here was wipe my brush off. I didn't even wash it. And then I'm just gonna use my container of orange and dip directly in there to fill in this middle section of his body. All right, he's looking so great. We are gonna wash this brush out because the next thing we need to paint are his inside of his ears, and they are going to be pink. If you like your pink really bright like this, you can use it just like this to fill in the ears. If you want a little bit more of a pastel pink, you can grab your mixing card or your mixing plate and add a little bit of white with a little bit of pink. When you stir this together, you're gonna get a lighter pink. So just pick a shade that you like for the ears. There's no wrong color for this part. If you like a dark pink, go for it. If you like a light pink, go for it. All right, I'm gonna turn him over so I can reach his ears. Just be careful for the orange that you've already filled in. And again, don't worry about the black lines. You will see them again. So even if the paint fills them in, once it dries a little bit, you're gonna completely be able to see those lines still, so don't worry about that. We're also gonna be outlining on those black lines, so that'll help to have them really pop as well. Okay. Well, there's only one part of our fox that we haven't painted, and it's his nose. So you can rinse off your brush. We don't want to let acrylic paint dry on our brush. So if you ever take a break from your project, if you need to grab a snack or a drink, or you get up from the table, just make sure that you wash your brush off and dry it on your paper towel. We do want to make sure that these brushes stay nice and clean. If the acrylic paint dries in here, it's very hard to get out. Okay, last but not least, we are gonna paint our fox's nose. There's actually gonna be a big black tile on here, but just in case it doesn't completely cover this section, it's always a safer bet to paint in here. If this brush is too big, and you have a smaller brush in your kit, you can use a smaller brush. If not, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect since we are going to be putting a tile here. Okay, I got a little funky. Let's fix it up a little bit. All right, rinse your brush one more time. Before we do the outlining part of our project, where we put these black lines in, bring the sample back over. We need our paint to get really dry. We're gonna be using a Sharpie marker to do the outlining, and if our paint is tacky, when we draw over it with the Sharpie marker, the Sharpie is not gonna leave a line, and all the paint is gonna get stuck to the tip of the Sharpie marker, and then it's gonna be a mess. So we're gonna give our fox a few minutes to dry, and while we're doing that, you can clean up your workspace. So we are completely done with the water, all of the paint colors, the paper towels, and the brush. So we are gonna pause for a moment. We're gonna clean up our workspace, and then you are gonna unpack the supplies that you need for the tiling part of the project, which is your Sharpie marker, your container of glue, and you should have a couple of containers of tiles. They might not be these exact ones, but whatever tiles you have in your kit, you're gonna go ahead and unpack. All right, so everybody take a sec to do that now, and we will be right back. Okay, my lovely little friends, we are back. Our workspace is clean. We are set up with all of the items that we're gonna need for the second half of our project. I forgot to mention that you need this popsicle stick. So if you didn't put that out yet, you can grab that from your kit. Okay, we are going to do the outlining part of our project. Meaning we are gonna be adding all the black lines that you see on the edges of each section of the project. And to do that, we're gonna be using a Sharpie marker. The reason that we let our project dry for a few minutes, like we said, was so our Sharpie marker doesn't get paint on the tip and stop working. So right now, before you start outlining, make sure that you rub your finger over these lines carefully, and be sure that all of the paint that we've used in step one is dry. Once you've done that, I normally like to start at the top and work my way down. And don't worry if your line isn't a straight line the whole time. Sometimes you have to stop. It's hard to keep making the line and making it meet up perfectly. So when I stop and start my line, I usually put a little dot in there, and it's a cute way to get your line to look nice without having to worry that it isn't perfect. If you don't like the way that looks, you can 100% try to connect your line all the way around. It just sometimes is hard to do. So we're starting with the ears and just going along that indentation line that's there. Once you have the ears outlined, I like to add a little bit of an accent line as well inside of here. So just sort of a backwards L-shaped line on one side of the ear. Again, if you don't like it, you can skip it. All right, I'm gonna turn him a little bit so I can do this big curved line that goes along his face. Take your time. If you make a mistake with a Sharpie, you can go back with the acrylic paint and cover it, but then you're gonna have to let your paint dry again. You're gonna have to get all your paints back out. So the better thing to do at this part is to just go slowly and carefully. I'm gonna continue this line up and around the edge of my fox's face. One of the great things about making art, even when you're taking a tutorial, is that your idea about how your fox should look might be different than my idea about how my fox should look. And you are welcome to create your art in whatever way makes you most happy and most comfortable. So if you're following along and at any step of the way you think, you know what, I don't want my fox to look like that. You're welcome to skip a step. You can add something. So I got a little bit of paint. I had one little wet spot right here. It's good to just sort of quickly scribble that off the edge of your Sharpie marker. All right, we're about halfway done with our outlining, so I'm just going to continue on to the tail part. Don't be afraid to turn your project. If you're having trouble seeing, sometimes you need to reorient your project so that you can see what's in front of you and what's coming next. I'm going to add a little bit of an accent line on the edge of my tail. And I'm going to add one around the edge here. I am feeling good about my outline. I have all of the accents on there that I want. Feel free to take a moment to pause the video if you're still outlining or if you want to add any more black details to your fox. Once you're happy with your outline, you're going to go ahead and cap your Sharpie marker and put this to the side. You'll be including this back into your kit to return to the studio. All right, we're up to the tiling part, which is honestly my favorite part of the project. The first thing that I'm gonna recommend that you do is pour some of your tiles out onto the tee-ball. You don't have to pour them all out. I mean, you can if you want to. But the reason that I want you to pour them out and not dig around inside of these containers is that normally we send tiles that are very smooth on all four sides, but sometimes we do cut big tile shapes down into smaller tile shapes. And when we do that, it's possible to have a sharp edge. So it's always better to have your tiles out on the table, out of the container, and that way you're not sticking your finger in here digging around. The other thing that's nice about pouring out your tile shapes is that you can really see what you have. So it helps when you're tiling because it gives you a really good idea about what different shaped tiles you have and how you may be able to put them together to make cute patterns. You're gonna find one black tile in your bag. Anybody know what this is for? That's right, this is our fox's cute nose. So you can either just put this to the side for now, and we will be using that in a couple minutes. I have some circles here that I'm gonna pour out as well. Wow, we have a lot of cute tiles today. I like this orange fox. He's like a storybook sort of fox. I feel like you'd find him frolicking in a storybook forest with fairy tale characters. All right, cool. All right, this is our glue. Gonna make some suggestions right now. The first suggestion that I'm gonna make to you is, it's a good idea to lay your tiles out before you start gluing them. So what does that mean? That means you're gonna wanna take your tiles and put them down onto your project without gluing them to see how they're gonna look. You're gonna think, does this look good? Or maybe I wanna do a different pattern. Maybe I wanna move them around. Maybe they're too close together, whatever it is. Once you glue your tiles into place, they become difficult to move. So it's a really good idea to plan out some of your idea before you start gluing so that you don't have to worry that, oh, I don't like the way this looks, now it's stuck, I can't get it off. That's my first suggestion. My second thing I wanted to tell you is you don't have enough tiles to fill in every single square inch of your project, so that's another reason why it's really good to plan it out. Your project does not have to look like this. If you decide to take these tiles and fill up his whole head, but maybe just do a few tiles on his tail, that's totally fine. If you like exactly how the sample looks, you can try to create yours to look exactly how the sample looks. The other piece of advice that I'm going to give you is about gluing. Now there are two ways to glue your tiles onto your base. Number one, you can take your popsicle stick and get a little glue, put it onto your base, and then stick your tile on top of your little glue pile. The second option would be taking glue on your popsicle stick, putting it on your tile, and then sticking your tile onto your piece. Either way is fine. Also, either way you do it, you don't need a lot of glue. You really just need a dot of glue. It's very sticky and it's gonna dry. It's gonna be very strong, the bond. So don't worry, you don't need to go crazy with the glue. If your glue is showing around your tiles, like mine is right now, don't worry because it's gonna dry totally clear and you're not gonna have to worry about it. See, now I told you guys to lay your tiles down in advance and I didn't. And they're already a little bit hard to move. Good thing I really like it. Okay, so take your time and arrange your tiles. You can pause now. You can just sort of take a break and play with your tiles for a little bit until you feel really great about how your pattern looks. And once you're ready, you can jump in and start gluing them. I'm gonna go ahead and just glue as I go, just for the sake of time. But happy tiling, happy gluing, and have a good time. All right, so you can see that I've gone ahead and tiled the tail portion of my fox. I've added the black nose and I've given him this little crown up here. If you have extra tiles left and you want to add any additional details to your fox, this is a good time to do that. I also just wanted to let you know that you're going to want to leave your fox flat for about 24 hours to give this glue enough time to dry before you stand it up and display it. I hope every everyone had the best time creating this fabulous fox mosaic today, and we'll see you all soon.